My name is Adrienne Cole, 34 years old. The day everything broke began the way all hospital days do, fluorescent, caffeinated, and half asleep. My shift had just hit its midpoint, that dead zone where the smell of antiseptic and old coffee start blending into one thought. I was charting vitals, pen flicking on autopilot, when my phone buzzed. 6 missed calls, all from Meera's number. At first, I smiled, assuming she'd pocket-dialed me again. But then I saw the timestamps. Each call, less than a minute apart. That rhythm wasn't clumsy, it was panic. My chest tightened as I ducked into the hallway. The hum of monitors faded behind me. I hit redial. She answered on the first ring. "Mommy," she whispered. Her voice was trembling. "They left me." The words didn't register right away. "Who did, sweetheart?" "Grandma and Grandpa, Aunt Sienna. They said I could go again on the boat, but when I got off it was different. They're gone." For a second, everything inside me went weightless. "You're not on the boat anymore?" "No, I got off. I thought it was the same dock." My knees almost gave out. All I could see in my mind was water. Dark, endless, shifting, and my daughter standing somewhere she didn't recognize. "Okay, baby," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "Look around. Do you see any signs? Maybe a word or number?" "There's ice cream, something tours." "Good girl. Stay right there. Go to the lady selling tickets. Tell her your mommy wants to talk, okay?" I heard a shuffle, then a new voice, female, nervous, but kind. "Hello?" "This is Meera's mother," I said quickly. "My family may have gotten separated from her. She's 6. "Oh my God, don't worry. She's safe. I'll keep her with me." "Please," I said, my throat tight. "Don't let her out of your sight." "I won't." I hung up and called my parents. Mom answered on the second ring, bright as sunlight through glass. "Hi, honey. Everything okay?" "Where is Meera?" "She's fine," she said, airy as if this were about a forgotten lunchbox. "She wanted another ride, so we let her stay on the boat. There were lots of kids." I froze. "You left a 6-year-old on a moving boat?" Mom sighed like I was being dramatic. "Oh, Adrienne, it's a family place." In the background, Sienna's voice cut in, sharp and casual. "We didn't have time to wait, okay? The next attraction was starting." That was the moment something inside me crystallized. My voice came out level and cold. "Stay where you are," I said. "I'll handle this." Then I hung up. By the time I reached the police station an hour later, my scrubs were soaked through with rain. Meera sat on a bench, wrapped in a blanket far too big for her, clutching her stuffed bunny. When she saw me, she ran, colliding into my chest so hard it knocked the air out of me. The officer standing nearby smiled gently. "She was exactly where you said she'd be, Dr. Cole. Shaken, but safe." I nodded, unable to speak. I thanked her, gathered Meera's small backpack, and walked into the night. The air smelled like wet asphalt and metal. I buckled Meera in, brushed the rain from her hair, and whispered, "You did everything right." Her eyelids fluttered. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby," I said, voice breaking. "You're my hero." As we drove home, streetlights streaked across the windshield like lines of fire. I'd never known silence could feel so loud. That night, I sat beside her bed long after she fell asleep. Every breath she took was a reminder of how easily she could have been lost. My husband, Rowan, came in quietly, still in his scrubs. "You should lie down," he said. "I'm fine. You've been sitting there for 3 hours." "Then I'll make it 4. He didn't argue. He just put a mug of tea beside me and left the room. By 2 a.m., my hands were steady, my mind anything but. This didn't start on a boat. It started years ago. Sienna was always the golden one. When she was 9, they praised her for helping Mom. When I was 9, I spent the summer doing laundry and babysitting her. When she got B's, she was well-rounded. When I got A's, I was trying too hard. That favoritism didn't fade, it evolved. Sienna went to college for something that photographed well and married Derek before her student loans even cleared. 3 kids in 6 years. A husband whose job title changed every holiday dinner. Meanwhile, I clawed my way through med school on scholarships and caffeine. Every bill I've ever paid, I earned. My parents never congratulated me, just reminded me how much I owed them. They'd call it help, but it was servitude in polite language, just until we're caught up on the mortgage. "Your sister's having a rough year. You make good money, sweetheart. Family helps family." So I paid every month, $750 for their mortgage, $200 for Sienna's emergencies, a few hundred for the kids' birthdays. Smooth, automated generosity. The price of peace. And they rewarded me by leaving my daughter alone on a moving boat. By sunrise, the numbness had burned off. I opened my laptop, filed a police report, child endangerment, Clearwater Lake Docks. I typed their names, Leonard and Dana Cole, Sienna and Derek Vale. My fingers trembled, but didn't hesitate. When I clicked submit, I felt lighter. Rowan walked in as I closed the screen. Did you do it? Yes. He nodded once. Good. That afternoon, Meera handed me a drawing of a boat. For you, she said softly. I taped it to the fridge. Then I opened my banking app. Half the mortgage? Cancel. Family allowance? Cancel. Utilities? Cancel. Each confirmation screen felt like oxygen. When the last transfer vanished, my chest finally expanded. No tears, just clarity. I scrolled to the most recent transactions. $23.90, $41.50, $1,150 total. The cost of their family day. I drafted a message to Sienna. Since you left my daughter alone on a boat, please refund the $1,150 I paid for your family's trip. I can send an invoice if you'd like. I hit send. Minutes later, my phone lit up. You're unbelievable, Sienna snapped, making such a drama out of nothing. Nothing? I said quietly. She was fine. You act like we left her in the middle of the ocean. You left her on a moving boat. She's 6, not helpless. Maybe teach her to listen. What? Nothing. Goodbye. I hung up, placed my phone face down, and let the silence breathe. 4 days later, Dad called. There must be some mix-up. The mortgage payment didn't go through. No mix-up, I said. Well, can you check the bank? I canceled it. A pause. You can't just stop paying. We depend on that money. You should try depending on yourselves. Mom's voice joined in, muffled but urgent. Your sister made a mistake. Don't be cruel. You didn't even call to ask if Meera was okay, I said. Well, she's fine now, isn't she? Something inside me froze over. You don't get to decide what's fine. Dad's tone hardened. You're being ungrateful. I smiled to myself. Then I learned from the best. And I hung up. That night, the house was quiet except for Meera humming to herself as she built a pillow fort. Is this your castle? I asked. Only good people can come in, she said. Perfect, I whispered. I've been looking for that kind of policy. I lay beside her, her tiny hand resting on my arm. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The world felt clean. They thought it would blow over. They had no idea what was coming. The first quiet day didn't feel like peace. It felt like a held breath. I went to work, did the rounds, made small jokes with patients that landed like feathers. Nobody in my unit knew that 4 days earlier my parents had decided a moving boat counted as childcare. It was almost funny how normal everything looked when the center had shifted. On the 5th day, the door I'd closed rattled on its hinges. Mommy, Meera's voice was small in the rearview mirror. Grandma and Grandpa came to school today. I pulled the car into a space so fast the seatbelt caught my shoulder. They what? At lunch, she said, fiddling with the strap on her backpack. They told me it was my fault, because I got off the boat too early. They said you should start paying again so we can be a family. There are sentences that turn the world sharp. I turned and took her hands. Look at me. You did nothing wrong. None of this is your fault. Her eyes filled, then cleared the way children's eyes do when conviction meets them head on. Okay, she whispered. Can we have pancakes for dinner? Yes, I said, surprised at how steady my voice was. And extra. When we got home, I opened my laptop with the precision of a surgeon. Email to the principal, vice principal, the school secretary. Effective immediately, only Adrienne Cole and Rowan Cole are authorized to visit or pick up Meera Cole. No exceptions. If anyone else arrives, please call me and security. I added a copy of my driver's license, Rowan's, and our contact numbers in bold. The reply from the principal came within 10 minutes. Understood. We'll update the SIS and the front desk binder today. I'm sorry this happened. 5 minutes after that, the secretary sent a shorter note. We'll watch for the Coles, grandparents. Small thing. There's been some confusion recently. A visitor signed Adrienne C. last week in a different handwriting. We assumed it was you because the class aide recognized the last name. We'll tighten our checks. A cold prickle moved across my scalp. A different handwriting. Someone writing my name in my place. I filed it in the mental drawer labeled later and called Ian, my attorney. Again, he said, voice dry as paper. All right, what flavor of boundary do you want? Polite but terrifying, I said. Cease and desist. No contact with Meera at school. No harassment. No third-party messaging through teachers. Add a line about misrepresenting themselves as me. He hummed. Ever granted them any informal authority? A letter? A shared login? Something that could be stretched into implied consent? No, I said automatically. Then doubt flickered. Years of helping had a way of blurring edges. Not that I remember. If there is anything, even a text that reads like permission, send it. And Adrienne? Yes? Start a paper trail. Every visit, every call, every oddity. Judges respect logs. I'm not going to court. Most people aren't, he said, until they are. After I hung up, I made pancakes too big for the pan. Meera laughed when the batter ran over the edges like an eclipse. We ate at the counter, feet swinging, twilight pooling blue outside the window. For one clean hour, nothing rattled. Then my phone lit up. Sienna. I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity is a cheap drug, I answered. You're unbelievable, she began without hello. The breathy glamour in her voice carried even through a speaker. You told the school we're not allowed to see her? You're punishing us because you can't take a joke. Abandoning a 6-year-old on a boat isn't a joke. She was supervised. People were there. You are so controlling, Adrienne. You think because you make money. I think because I'm her mother, I said, and the quiet in my voice startled us both. You went to her school to pressure her. You told her this is her fault. Mom said you stopped paying, she said, as if we were discussing a Netflix subscription. You know they can't afford it. You know what you did. What I did, I repeated, tasting the words. I protected my child. You're breaking this family, she snapped. Then maybe it was built wrong, I said, and hung up. The next morning, the cease and desist letters went out by certified mail. One to my parents, one to Sienna and Derek. The subject line was sterile. The body was not. Any attempt to contact Meera at school, daycare, activities, or through third parties will be treated as harassment. Any misrepresentation of identity will be reported to law enforcement. Rowan read it over my shoulder. Polite, he said, and terrifying. Thank Ian, I said. The silence that settled afterward was different from the first one. Before, it was a stunned quiet, like the pause after a plate breaks. Now it was intentional. I blocked their numbers, muted every extended relative who still thought family meant my bank account. I turned off read receipts, a small mercy that felt like armor. The house breathed. So did I. At work, a nurse asked, You okay? You look lighter. I stopped funding my own misery, I said. She laughed, then saw my face. Oh, good for you. On Wednesday, as I prepped a patient for discharge, my phone vibrated with a fraud alert banner I nearly swiped away. New device login recognized. The phrasing snagged. Recognized. Recognized by whom? I thumbed into the banking app. The alert was gone, filed into a place the UI thought I didn't need to look. I told myself I'd deal with it later. Later had teeth. At noon, the principal called. Just to confirm, she said gently, your parents arrived again, but we turned them away. Security escorted them off campus. Your mother grew emotional. Your father asked about the timeline. What timeline? I don't know, she said. He said, she knows the timeline. She knows we had no choice. The word choice pinged against the secretary's note, against Ian's question about informal authority, against the recognized login. Like magnets finding each other, small things clicked into pattern, but nothing held long enough to name. Thank you, I said, for keeping her safe. We've added a photo sheet to the desk, the principal said. This won't happen again. That night, Meera turned the couch into a citadel. Only good people can come in, she informed me again, tapping a cushion with a ruler like a guard with a halberd. I bowed and asked for entry. What if someone lies and says they're good? I asked, easing onto the floor. Then they have to do a test. She sat cross-legged, considering. They have to hold a glass of water and not spill. High standards, I said. It's harder when your hands shake, she said solemnly. I sat there, the ruler between us, thinking about hands that shook and hands that didn't. Thinking about signatures that didn't look like mine. On Friday, Dad left a voicemail from a new number. Adrienne, this is your father. This has gone far enough. Call me back. We can work out the timing. I forwarded it to Ian without listening again. He replied, keep it. Do not respond. Sienna tried a different angle, a chirpy voice memo that slid into my email like a perfume ad. Hey, so Mom's really upset, and I told her you're just stressed. We can make this go away if you just answer or send the money. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Also, Derek says hi. We can bring the kids to the park Sunday. Picture ops. I stared at the waveform, at the casual way she arranged my life in her mouth. I didn't reply. That weekend, I did something radical. Nothing. No calls, no managing, no preemptive soothing. We made pancakes again and burned the first batch on purpose. We bought a ridiculous plant at the hardware store and named it Sir Fernsworth. We took a walk in the small city park where the path loops like a rubber band and watched a dog chase a leaf like it was a comet. On Sunday night, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and did what Ian told me to do. I made a log. Dates, times, calls, school visit, 12:20 p.m. Principal's note, security escort. Secretary's message about Adrienne C. in a different hand. Fraud banner, recognized device. Dad's timeline. Sienna's memo. The list looked like a heart monitor. Quiet, then spikes. When I finished, I closed the notebook and placed it beside my laptop like a talisman. The house was dim, except for the warm cone of light over the table. In the other room, Rowan and Meera argued about whether a stuffed bunny could be a knight if it couldn't hold a sword. The argument was intense and completely without pain. My phone buzzed, a last reflex in a body that used to flinch. Unknown number again. I watched it hum across the wood, the screen lighting and dimming like a lighthouse no ship deserved. Then it went still. I put the phone face down and breathed. A door can rattle for a long time before it finally breaks. If they wanted to keep shaking it, fine. I'd added locks. And for the first time in my life, I owned the key. It began like a slow infection, one rumor at a time. The following Monday, my phone became a slot machine of half-familiar numbers and veiled accusations. "Your mom's really hurt," one cousin texted. "She says you're demanding money she doesn't owe." An hour later, a coworker cornered me near the coffee station. "Everything okay?" he asked carefully. "Your sister posted something online about ungrateful daughters?" I smiled without showing teeth. Did she spell ungrateful right this time? He blinked, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. By noon, my social notifications were full of indirect posts. Some people forget who fed them first. Money changes hearts faster than fame. Family shouldn't be transactional. Each caption came with emojis, hands in prayer, hearts, crying faces. The algorithm loved it. I sat at my desk, scrolling through the noise, and for the first time in my life, I didn't defend myself. I just opened a new email. Subject clarification. I typed slowly, precisely. For the record, I have paid $750 per month toward my parents' mortgage for the past 5 years. I've also covered their utilities and sent my sister $200 monthly for emergencies. Attached are bank statements. 2 weeks ago, my family abandoned my 6-year-old daughter on a moving tour boat and left her unsupervised. I filed a police report for child endangerment. Documentation available upon request. Make of it what you will. Then I reread it, adjusted nothing, and hit send to every relative in my contacts. The response was seismic. First came silence, then a flurry of replies. "Oh my God, I had no idea. Are you serious? This changes everything." By the next morning, Sienna's post vanished, replaced by a picture of her coffee cup captioned "Fresh Start." Mom's account went private. The narrative had shifted. For once, the truth was louder. But victory is never clean. That afternoon, I received a call from my cousin Andrea. Her voice was low, careful. "Hey, don't freak out, but I heard something." "Go on." "I was at Mom and Dad's last night. Your parents, I mean. Uncle Leonard kept saying he had no choice after the bank called." "What bank?" "I don't know," she said, but he looked terrified. When I hung up, that cold prickle from last week returned. The recognized device alert, the timeline, the forged sign-in, all threads from the same fabric. I just didn't know what shape it made yet. That night, I poured myself coffee that tasted like pennies and exhaustion. Meera was coloring at the table, humming off key. I should have felt peace. I didn't. My mind kept circling the same words. No choice, timeline, recognized device. Before bed, I checked the account again. Everything looked normal. No new withdrawals, no pending transfers, just the ghost of that alert, gone, but not forgotten. The next morning, my phone rang at dawn. "Sienna, CPS came to our house," she hissed. "Do you understand what you've done?" I sat up. "Excuse me?" "They said it was an anonymous report, but we know it's you. They asked about the boat, the kids, everything. They're making us take parenting classes." Good, I said softly. Maybe you'll learn something. Don't act superior, she snapped. You've ruined us. No, Sienna, I said, standing by the window where the morning light sliced across the floor. You did that when you left a child behind. She exhaled shakily, then hung up. By lunchtime, Mom had called too, her voice a trembling mix of outrage and denial. Because of you, your sister could lose her children. You're destroying this family. I let her finish before replying. I didn't destroy it, Mom. I just stopped pretending it was intact. Then I hung up and blocked her number. That night, I couldn't sleep. The guilt was there, faint but real. A mosquito you can't quite swat. CPS visits are serious. Even if they deserved consequences, the thought of kids caught in that crossfire gnawed at me. Rowan found me sitting on the couch at 2 a.m., a mug of untouched tea cooling beside me. You okay? Do you ever feel bad for being right? I asked. He leaned against the doorway. Only when being right costs something. What if it costs peace? He considered. Then maybe peace was overpriced. I laughed, a small, tired sound. That's cynical. It's honest, he said, then kissed the top of my head. Come to bed. In the days that followed, the ripples spread. My parents sold their house. Downsizing, they told everyone. But Andrea sent photos of the listing before it disappeared. They couldn't afford the mortgage without my payments. Dad sold his fishing gear. Mom stopped getting her hair colored. The little details of pride that used to define them began to fade. Meanwhile, Sienna and Derek attended their parenting workshops. The social circle that once adored them went silent. Former friends avoided them at the school gates. Even Derek's smug grin in family photos looked forced now, as if the air around him had turned too heavy to breathe. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, everything inside me felt muted, like applause heard through glass. At work, I smiled when people congratulated me on finally standing up for myself, but my heart didn't move. I'd spent my life being the one who fixed things. Now I'd burn the bridge instead. A week later, I was leaving the hospital when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a heartbeat, I considered ignoring it. Then something, instinct, dread, curiosity, made me answer. Dr. Cole? The voice asked. It was a man, calm and polite. This is James Miller from Clearwater Regional Bank's Security Department. I'm following up on a verification request from last year. I just need to confirm. Did you authorize a secondary account under your name in May 2023? My stomach dropped. A secondary account? Yes, ma'am. It was linked to your primary, but listed a cosigner named Leonard Cole. There was also a notarized letter granting him temporary financial handling rights. Expires this month. We sent renewal paperwork last week, but it bounced back. My mouth went dry. Can you email me a copy of that letter? Of course. We just need to confirm the mailing address. I gave it. The call ended. For a moment, I stood in the parking lot under the hard white lights, my breath visible in the chill air. A forged letter, a cosigner. My father. It explained everything. The timeline, the panic, the login alerts. They hadn't just relied on my generosity, they'd used my name to secure it. The email arrived before I reached the car. One attachment, financial authorization, temporary handling. I opened it. At the bottom, beneath neat typed lines, was my name. My signature, but not mine. The loops were wrong, the angle too sharp. A counterfeit so practiced it hurt to look at. I stared at it until the screen blurred, the bank logo warping into meaningless color. They hadn't only betrayed my trust, they'd stolen my identity. I closed my laptop, my reflection ghosted in the dark window behind me. In that reflection, I looked calm, almost serene, but that was just the surface tension before water breaks. They thought I'd stopped at boundaries. They thought silence was surrender. They were wrong, because this time, I wasn't just fighting for peace. I was fighting for proof. And when I had it, there'd be nowhere left for them to hide. The next morning, the world looked deceptively ordinary. The sun rose, the coffee percolated, Meera hummed as she brushed her teeth. But inside my chest, something ancient and steady had woken up. A cold, clean kind of fury that didn't tremble anymore. Rowan noticed before I said a word. What happened? I turned my laptop toward him. The forged document glowed on the screen, my name in someone else's hand. They opened a secondary account, co-signed by Dad, with a notarized letter. Look. He leaned in, scanning the text. When he reached the bottom, his jaw set. That's not your signature. No, I said. It's my handwriting style, but not my signature. Someone practiced. He looked at me for a long second, then said quietly, What do you want to do? I already knew. By noon, I was sitting across from Ian at his office, a narrow space smelling faintly of paper and burnt coffee. He read through the scanned documents, eyes narrowing behind wire-rimmed glasses. "This isn't casual identity misuse," he said finally. "It's bank fraud." "They used my name for years," I said. "That's why Dad panicked when I stopped paying. Their entire house of cards was built on my credit line." Ian nodded. "They likely leveraged your reliability. The bank approved it because your record's spotless. Leonard probably told them he handled family finances for convenience." He flipped the page. "See this notary seal? We can subpoena it. If it's legitimate, we'll find who authorized it. If it's fake, that's forgery and perjury." I pressed my palms together, grounding myself. "I don't want to ruin them, Ian. I need them to admit it." "Then you don't file criminal charges yet. We draft an acknowledgement, full admission, repayment plan, and forfeiture of access. If they refuse..." He met my eyes. "Then we go to court." When I left his office, the world outside was painfully bright. A wind carried the faint smell of lake water from the harbor several blocks away, and for a second I remembered the day of the boat, the sound of Meera's frightened voice saying they left me. My pulse steadied. I knew what had to come next. That evening, I sent a single text to my parents' number. "Meet me at the old house, tomorrow at 6. They didn't reply, but I knew they would come. People like them always show up for their own defense. The next day, the driveway looked smaller than I remembered. The once perfect roses Mom had bragged about had withered in brittle clumps. The for sale sign was gone, the shutters painted a dull beige. Dad opened the door before I could knock. His face was thinner, his confidence eroded. Mom hovered behind him, a ghost of her old self, clutching a mug she didn't seem to remember holding. "Adrienne," she said, tentative, like I was a neighbor and not her daughter. "You look tired." "So do you," I said evenly. "We need to talk." Sienna was already there, sitting on the couch like she owned the place, arms crossed, eyes glossy with resentment. "You didn't have to come storming in," she said. "We're not criminals." "Then this won't take long." I set my laptop on the coffee table and opened the PDF. My forged signature filled the screen. "Recognize this?" Dad's face drained of color. "Where did you—" "Clearwater Regional sent it," I said. "They thought they were renewing authorization. Turns out my name's been buying your comfort for 5 years." "Adrienne," Mom said quickly, "it wasn't like that. Your father—" "I know exactly what it was like," I cut in. "You didn't ask because you knew I'd say no, so you pretended I'd said yes." Sienna shifted uncomfortably. "Dad just thought it was easier—" "Easier?" I repeated. "To forge your own daughter's signature?" Dad straightened, the old authority flickering in his posture. "We did what we had to do. You make more money than the rest of us combined. The bank wouldn't have approved us alone. We were trying to keep the family afloat." "By drowning me quietly," I said. He flinched, but didn't look away. "You wouldn't have missed it." "That's the point," I said. "You counted on that." Silence fell, thick and humming. I looked from one face to another, Mom's trembling lips, Sienna's tearless eyes, Dad's stubborn pride, and realized something that almost broke me. They weren't sorry. They were scared. I slid a folder across the table. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll each sign an acknowledgement of what you did. You'll submit it to Ian by Friday. You'll also agree to repay the amount owed through a formal schedule. If a single payment is missed, or you contact me or Meera outside written correspondence, I file for fraud, forgery, and endangerment." Mom's voice cracked. "Adrienne, please, we're still your parents." "And I'm still your daughter," I said quietly. "Just not your safety net." Sienna's mask slipped for the first time. "What about me?" she asked. "You already ruined my life with that CPS report. My friends won't even talk to me. Now this?" "You did that to yourself," I said, standing. "I just stopped covering it." Dad's voice broke into a plea, softer than I'd ever heard it. "Please don't do this. We made mistakes." "Then sign it," I said. "It's the only way I don't make them public." No one moved. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind rattling the window panes. Finally, Sienna exhaled shakily. "Fine," she muttered. "I'll sign." Mom followed, her hands trembling as she picked up the pen. Dad was last. When his name hit the page, something in me unclenched, a knot I hadn't realized I'd been carrying since childhood. When it was over, I closed the folder, slid it back into my bag, and said, "You don't need to call. I'll know if you try." Then I walked out. The drive home was silent, except for the faint hum of tires on asphalt. By the time I reached the city, dusk had turned the sky copper. I parked in front of our apartment and sat there for a long time, watching people move through windows, families eating dinner, laughing, ordinary moments that no longer felt out of reach. Inside, Meera was building another fortress out of cushions and blankets. "You made it bigger," I said. She grinned. "It's got a drawbridge now." I stepped inside her fort, ducking under the blanket doorway. "Who's allowed in today?" "Only good people," she said again. "Still the same rule, huh?" She nodded solemnly. "But now we check their pockets too, for secrets." I laughed softly and kissed her hair. Good policy. When she fell asleep later, I went to the kitchen and made tea, letting the quiet settle around me. The city glowed outside the window, distant, alive, clean. I took out my phone, scrolled through my blocked contacts, and for one fleeting second considered unblocking them. Then I set the phone down, face first. Some doors don't need reopening. Some silences are sacred. I thought about the first time Meera said they left me, about the way her small voice had anchored me through all of this. She didn't need a perfect family. She just needed a mother who finally understood the difference between help and harm. The kettle clicked off behind me. Steam rose, soft and steady. I carried the mug to the table and looked at the empty chair across from me. For years, I'd filled that space with guilt, obligation, and noise. Tonight, it held peace. Out of habit, I glanced at my inbox one last time. Ian had sent a single-line message. Documents received. All parties signed. Case closed. I stared at it until my vision blurred. Not from tears this time, but from relief that had nowhere left to go. Outside, the streetlight flickered, reflecting off the window. It looked almost like the lake that day. Dark water, pale ripples, light breaking through. They taught me silence. I taught myself freedom. And in that quiet kitchen, surrounded by the small hum of a world finally calm, I realized something simple and perfect. I didn't need them to sink. I just needed to stop saving them,